You go over other topics in your book, 2012, um, Obama's birth certificate controversy, and other things that are kind of going closer and closer to our current time period. And there was one that kind of stands out to me that you actually mentioned earlier in this QAnon phenomenon. And I was wondering, do you think something like QAnon, which mainly used online forums to disseminate ideas and posts, is something like that only possible with the internet and social media, or could something like that exist like prior to the technological advancements?
Ah, it's an interesting question. QAnon is really peculiar. We still don't know, obviously, who Q was, whether there was a single Q or more than one individual. Uh, I'm going to say he for convenience, although again we don't know Q's gender. What there are some interesting characteristics to the Q post, of which there are about 5,000 uh, until he stopped posting. There haven't been posts now for, I'm trying to think of when the last one was, some time ago. I've gone over all of them.
Oh, wow.
Uh, they they started out being very specific in terms of making concrete predictions, most of which turned out to be false, and then ended up asking sort of rhetorical questions, suggesting that Q knew the answer, but wasn't about to tell what the answers were. Began suggesting to those who were reading the posts that it was the job of those reading the post to, as it were, fill in the blanks, that what Q was doing was giving people crumbs, his metaphor, and that it was their job to find out what the true picture was. That Q knew, but he wasn't going to tell the rest of us. He was simply going to provide essential clues. And if you understood the clues correctly, you would then be able to solve the puzzle. Well, that was immensely empowering because it meant that the followers had a kind of a sacred duty uh, to fulfill. The other thing that kind of set QAnon apart was, in a sense, it involved a double conspiracy theory. On the one hand, it lays out an increasingly elaborate theory of the deep state. In fact, the longer QAnon goes on, the more elaborate the deep state conspiracy becomes. But then QAnon says there is a second conspiracy. The second conspiracy is the conspiracy led by Donald Trump, which will destroy the deep state initially they thought that was going to happen in 2017. Of course, it didn't. It keeps being delayed because the deep state is more powerful than anybody thought. But eventually, Donald Trump's conspiracy will destroy the conspiracy of the deep state. And QAnon is, as a movement, is sort of on the sidelines with special knowledge of how this battle is unfolding. And Trump, in their view, becomes a kind of quasi-messianic figure who will lead the final battle that will destroy the deep state. It's a sort of apocalyptic conception of one conspiracy fighting another conspiracy.
Yeah, it seems, I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but does that fit into like a super conspiracy?
Well, the only thing that prevents it from doing that, or being that, I should say, is that they don't really see the deep state as involving countries other than the United States. Now, there is substantial QAnon activity outside the United States, in Canada, in Germany, in Japan. But my sense is that QAnon has been successful in recruiting in other countries because in other countries it tends to drop ideas that don't seem to make sense in a non-American situation.